My name is Rick the Phantom Firestone.
My name is Ben the Ghoul Bugale, and you're listening to pixelprojectradio, a video game discussions, video game club-style podcast where we're leaving the earthly realms of video games to talk about something a little bit different and perhaps share something a little bit different with you this evening, morning, whatever time it is. Richard, what are we doing tonight, 3 a.m?
Spooky stories.
I think I need to stop. I'm a little too spooked from that.
Yeah, this is going to be what I think / hope will be the inaugural Halloween Spooky Story Fest here at Pixel Project Radio.
I'm hoping so too. I think that there's plenty of good stories that exist out there pertaining to video games. One in particular is kind of its own, monument in that canon, but there are a lot of scary stories and spooky stories and things to share, as it is spooky season, everybody. It is October 15th right now as we do this. So we are in the heart of, we're not in ABC's The 13 Days of Halloween or anything right now, but we're doing our own thing, gosh darn it.
Yeah, and I don't remember which one of us originally pitched this idea, but I know one of my favorite podcasts and one of the all-time great podcasts, Stuff You Should Know, they do a yearly Halloween reading too, and they do something pretty similar. So sort of like an homage to them, but also I think it's just a cool idea to take just a little break to get into the spirit of things, read some scary stories. We've got 3 of them today that we're going to read, plus sprinkling in some of the oh-so-great 2-sentence horror stories from the internet.
Yes, and some of them are a bit unnerving. A lot of them are going to be challenges for Rick and I to deliver with a straight face. We're going to look forward to it all the same. It makes sense that as a video game podcast, I think, and as 2 creative people as we are, that we can celebrate this blend of storytelling and art and poetry and all the other jazz. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying. You're doing this with me. You jumped on.
I do know what you're saying. It's why I'm here. So, do you want to talk about the first story? The first story that we're doing today is a Ben pick.
It is. The first story we're going to talk about is Edgar Allan Poe, not to be mixed up with Edward Allan Moore. Edgar Allan Poe's The Telltale Heart.
It's true. It's an all-time classic. There's a better than average chance that you've probably read this at some point.
There is. It was first published in 1843. It was by Edgar Allan Poe, as previously mentioned, one of the great American poets of all time. The genre of this, technically, is horror gothic literature. Yeah, this one, I mean, Rick and I were talking before we started recording. The Raven is a bit overdone, and it's not that it doesn't have its own unnervingness, but The Telltale Heart is, I think it's got a little bit more of a spook factor, don't you?
In some ways, yes. And it also gets us off the hook of having to convincingly read poetry.
It does. It is more of a story. Which, by the way, Edgar Allan Poe, first of all, I don't think he's someone to make fun of in general, but if there's one place you don't mess around with talking about Edgar Allan Poe, it is the state of Maryland.
Oh, why is that?
Because that is where that is like the homage spot. That is where Edgar Allan Poe died, though he was born in Boston. He died in Baltimore, and someone comes to his grave every October 7th and like drops off a single rose. It's all very spooky,
Yeah, that's a really interesting thing to keep up with every year. And at certain points, people have come out and said it was me, and then turns out they were lying, and the mystery goes on and on today.
Yeah, he was a wildly interesting person with just a really, really tragic life. But man, did it yield a lot of the art that we were blessed to have now that we're sitting here reading off of our computers in the year of our Lord 2022. I'm sure he never envisioned his own media being consumed like this.
And speaking of consuming it, we're about to read it to you. So without further ado, do you want to take it away, Ben?
I would love to get us started. If you feel like pouring yourself a glass of cognac or brandy, please do so from the safety of your home. This is an anti-drinking and driving podcast, everybody. Poe drank a lot of brandy, cognac, all that kind of stuff. That's why I say it. So, anyhow, let us begin The Telltale Heart. True, nervous, very, very dreadfully nervous, I had been and am, but why will you say that I am mad? The disease had sharpened my senses, not destroyed, not dulled them. Above all was the sense of hearing acute. I heard all things in heaven and in earth. I heard many things in hell. How then am I mad? Hearken and observe how healthily, how calmly I can tell you the whole story. It is impossible to say how first the idea entered my brain, but once conceived it haunted me day and night. Object there was none, passion there was none. I loved the old man. He had never wronged me. He had never given me insult. For his gold I had no desire. I think it was his eye. Yes, it was this. One of his eyes resembled that of a vulture, a pale blue eye with a film over it. Whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold, and so by degrees, very gradually, I made up my mind to take the life of the old man and thus rid myself of the eye forever.
Now this is the point. You fancy me mad. Madmen know nothing. But you should have seen me. You should have seen how wisely I proceeded, with what caution, with what foresight, with what dissimulation I went to work. I was never kinder to the old man than during the whole week before I killed him. And every night, about midnight, I turned the latch of his door and opened it, oh so gently. And then, when I made an opening sufficient for my head, I put in a dark lantern, all closed, so that no light shone out, and then I thrust in my head. Oh, you would have laughed to see how cunningly I thrust it in. I moved it slowly, very, very slowly, so that I might not disturb the old man's sleep. It took me an hour to place my whole head within the opening so far that I could see him as he lay upon his bed. Ha! Would a madman have been as so wise as this? And then, when my head was well within the room, I undid the lantern cautiously, oh, so cautiously. Cautiously, for the hinges creaked. I undid it just so much that a single thin ray fell upon the vulture eye. And this I did for 7 long nights, every night, just at midnight. But I found the eye always closed, and so it was impossible to do the work, for it was not the old man who vexed me, but his evil eye. And every morning, when the day broke, I went boldly into the chamber, and spoke courageously to him, calling him by name in a hearty tone, and inquiring how he had passed the night. So you see, he would have been a very profound old man indeed to suspect that every night, just at 12, I looked in upon him while he slept.
Upon the 8th night, I was more than usually cautious in opening the door. A watch's minute hand moves more quickly than did mine. Never before that night had I felt the extent of my own powers, of my sagacity. I could scarcely contain my feelings of triumph, to think that there I was, opening the door little by little, and he not even to dream of my secret deeds or thoughts. I fairly chuckled at the idea, and perhaps he heard me, for he moved on the bed suddenly as if startled. Now you may think that I drew back, but no. His room was as black as pitch with the thick darkness, for the shutters were close, fastened through fear of robbers, and so I knew that he could not see the opening of the door, and I kept pushing on it steadily. I had my head in, and was about to open the lantern when my thumb slipped upon the tin fastening, and the old man sprang up in the bed, crying out, "Who's there?" I kept quite still and said nothing. For a whole hour I did not move a muscle, and in the meantime, I did not hear him lie down. He was still sitting up in the bed listening, just as I have done night after night, hearkening to the death watches in the wall.
Ooh, what's gonna happen?
I don't know what's gonna happen. I'm sitting here. I'm spooked right now.
Presently I heard a slight groan, and I knew it was the groan of mortal terror. It was not a groan of pain or of grief. Oh no. It was the low, stifled sound that arises from the bottom of the soul when overcharged with awe. I knew the sound well. Many a night, just at midnight, when all the world slept, it has welled up from my own bosom, deepening, with its dreadful echo, the terrors that distracted me. I say I knew it well. I knew what the old man felt, and pitied him, although I chuckled at heart. I knew that he had been lying awake ever since the first slight noise, when he had turned in the bed. His fears had been ever since growing upon him. He had been trying to fancy them causeless, but could not. He had been saying to himself, "It is nothing but the wind in the chimney. It is only a mouse crossing the floor, or it is merely a cricket, which has made a single chirp." Yes, he has been trying to comfort himself with these suppositions, but he had found it all in vain. All in vain. Because death, in approaching him, had stalked with his black shadow before him and enveloped the victim, and it was the mournful influence of the unperceived shadow that caused him to feel, although he neither saw nor heard, to feel the presence of my head within the room. When I had waited a long time, very patiently, without hearing him lie down, I resolved to open a very, very little crevice in the lantern. So I opened it. You cannot imagine how stealthily, until at length a single dim ray, like the thread of the spider, shot from out the crevice and fell upon the vulture eye. It was open, wide, wide open, and I grew furious as I gazed upon it. I saw it with perfect distinctness, all a dull blue with a hideous veil over it that chilled the very marrow in my bones, but I could see nothing else of the old man's face or person, for I had directed the ray as if by instinct precisely upon the damned spot.
And now I have not told you that what you mistake for madness is but over-acuteness of the senses. Now, I say, there came to my ears a low, dull, quick sound, such as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I knew that sound well, too. It was the beating of the old man's heart. It increased my fury, as the beating of a drum stimulates the soldier into courage. But even yet I refrained and kept still. I scarcely breathed. I held the lantern motionless. I tried how steadily I could maintain the ray upon the eye. Meantime, the hellish tattoo of the heart increased. It grew quicker and quicker and louder every instant. The old man's terror must have been extreme. It grew louder, I say, louder every moment. Do you mark me well? I have told you that I am nervous, so I am. And now, at the dead hour of the night, amid the dreadful silence of that old house, so strange a noise as this excited me to uncontrollable terror. Yet for some minutes longer I refrained and stood still, and the beating grew louder. I thought that the heart must burst. And now a new anxiety seized me. The sound would be heard by a neighbor. The old man's hour had come. With a loud yell, I threw open the lantern and leaped into the room. He shrieked once only. In an instant, I dragged him to the floor and pulled the heavy bed over him. I then smiled gaily to find the deed so far done. But for many minutes the heart beat on with a muffled sound. This, however, did not vex me. It would not be heard through the wall. At length it ceased. The old man was dead. I removed the bed and examined the corpse. Yes, he was stone dead. I placed my hand upon his heart and held it there many minutes. There was no pulsation. He was stone dead. His eye would trouble me no more.
If still you think me mad, you will think so no longer when I describe the wise precautions I took for the concealment of the body. The night waned, and I worked hastily, but in silence. First of all, I dismembered the corpse. I cut off the head and the arms and the legs. I then took up 3 planks from the flooring of the chamber and deposited all between the scantlings. I then replaced the board so cleverly, so cunningly, that no human eye, not even his, could have detected anything wrong. There was nothing to wash out, no stain of any kind, no blood spot whatever. I had been too wary for that. A tub had caught it all. Ha ha. I hate reading laughter.
Me too.
When I had made an end of these labors, it was 4 o'clock, still dark as midnight. As the bell sounded the hour, there came a knocking at the street door. I went down to open it with a light heart, for what had I now to fear? There entered 3 men who introduced themselves with perfect suavity as officers of the police. A shriek had been heard by a neighbor during the night. Suspicion of foul play had been aroused. Information had been lodged at the police office, and they, the officers, had been deputed to search the premises. I smiled, for what had I to fear? I bade the gentleman welcome. The shriek, I said, was my own, in a dream. The old man, I mentioned, was absent in the country. I took my visitors all over the house. I bade them search well. I led them, at length, to his chamber. I showed them his treasures, secure, undisturbed. In the enthusiasm of my confidence, I brought chairs into the room, and desired them here to rest from their fatigues, while I, myself, in the wild audacity of my perfect triumph, placed my own seat upon the very spot beneath which reposed the corpse of the victim.
The officers were satisfied. My manner had convinced them. I was singularly at ease. They sat, and while I answered cheerily, they chatted of familiar things. But ere long I felt myself getting pale and wished them gone. My head ached, and I fancied a ringing in my ears. But still they sat and still chatted. The ringing became more distinct. It continued and became more distinct. I talked more freely to get rid of the feeling, but it continued and gained definitiveness until, at length, I found that the noise was not within my ears. No doubt I now grew very pale, but I talked more fluently and with a heightened voice, yet the sound increased, and what could I do? It was a low, dull, quick sound, much such a sound as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I gasped for breath, and yet the officers heard it not. I talked more quickly, more vehemently, but the noise steadily increased. I arose and argued about trifles in a high key and with violent gesticulations, but the noise steadily increased. Why would they not be gone? I paced the floor, to and fro, with heavy strides, as if excited to fury by the observations of the men, but the noise steadily increased. Oh God, what could I do? I foamed, I raved, I swore. I swung the chair upon which I had been sitting, and grated it upon the boards, but the noise arose over all and continually increased. It grew louder, louder, louder. And still the men chatted pleasantly and smiled. Was it possible they heard not? Almighty God, no, they heard, they suspected, they knew. They were making a mockery of my horror. This I thought, and this I think. But anything was better than this agony, anything was more tolerable than this derision. I could bear those hypocritical smiles no longer. I felt that I must scream or die, and now, again, hark, louder, 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 louder. Villains, I shrieked. Dissemble no more, I admit the deed. Tear up the planks, here, here. It is the beating of his hideous heart.
So when did you first read this story, Ben?
I think the first time I was exposed to it was actually late elementary school or early middle school.
Yeah, that's about when I read it, too. I remember reading this in middle school because this introduces, this story and then some others of Poe's as well, introduces the concept of an unreliable narrator pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, thinking of ones like this one and, what's the one where he boards up the cat in the basement? You know the one I'm talking about?
I do know the one you're talking about.
He's very good at writing unreliable narrators that say that they're very sane when they're actually not.
Classic. Literally classic Poe. I mean, he does this plenty of times. There's a lot of I don't know. Poe's one of those guys. He uses a really nice spread of word choice that's, you know, you get some 50-cent words, you get some dollar words, you get some words that you need to remind yourself how to pronounce in the middle of it. But it's all the same. I mean, it's good poetry. I feel that he uses these words well. The thing that is rather stumblesome for me is whenever he will write a sentence one way and then the other time, like if it comes back, it almost feels like it's like in a Yoda style. You know what I mean? Sometimes like words are put like officers of the police. I was like, okay, really?
Yeah, that might just be because of the time period too.
Yeah, no, it definitely.
Yeah, you're right. He doesn't use too many $20 words when, you know, $4 or $5 words will do. He's not like a, you know, what's another author that you read in F. Scott Fitzgerald, who, you know, uses flowery language almost for its own sake.
Yeah, he's not shirty about anything.
But it's good. This is a classic one. I think this is a great introduction to Poe's style. I think it's a great introduction to, the world of horror stories.
Personally, if I were to laugh at one part of this whole thing, it was one of the paragraphs you had, which is, "If still you think me mad, you will think so no longer when I describe the wise precautions I took for the concealment of the body." Like, I know that's not how you read it, but like he's like, here are the instructions. First of all, I dismembered the legs, or I dismembered the corpse. You know what I mean? Like, I read it like that way. Like, it is spooky, but like in my brain, I'm also like, the part of me that is Tim and Eric reads things that way.
He writes it in a very detached style, and I think it really lends to the idea of the character not having all of his mental facilities in a straight line, you know?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, someone justifying their literal, like, maniacal work. They're like, well, I crushed him with the bed, you know, as one does.
As one does.
And all because I hated his eyeball.
Good pick, man. This is a nice introduction to sort of what we're doing.
Thanks, baby.
Now, between each of these stories, and we've got two more, we are going to be reading some two-sentence horror. Now, if you're not familiar, two-sentence horror is a subreddit on the popular site Reddit. And the goal is to write a scary story in just 2 sentences. You know, it's like Shakespeare said, brevity is wit, which is funny because I am shortening the phrase. Anyways.
It's very, very purred happily of you. I love it.
As you might expect, I forget where that original joke is from, but I definitely didn't come up with it myself. As you might expect, the two-sentence horror community has some pretty great attempts, but it also is a breeding ground of really, really, really bad ones. And we're going to read some from both ends of the spectrum. So do you want to take us off, Ben? Do you want to kick us off? You want to take us there? You want to drive this truck? You want to navigate us through the spooky, lonesome highway that is two-sentence horror?
I would love nothing more. So I want to say that we do have Reddit before us as a source, but we also have a site called Bored Panda, and we've got short horror stories that are 2 sentences from both sites. And this is going to be sort of like speed dating with scary stories. Some of them, we're going to do our best to deliver all of these with a sense of spookiness. I don't know what the counter's at for the number of times I've said spooky or spookiness, but it's a lot right now.
And the way that these work is the first sentence is always going to be the subject line. It's the big, bold subject. And then the second sentence is the body. So we'll kind of take a pause between there to give you a bit more of the spooky effect.
All right. You want me to start?
Please.
Okay. Here's one from the Bored Panda site. There was a picture in my phone of me sleeping. I live alone.
Okay. I mean, that one's not bad.
It's a little unnerving.
Yeah, it's pretty spooky. I would be scared.
The number one comment on this is overly helpful neighbor closed the door after you walked in, left it open, and drunkenly fell asleep on the floor. Okay, whatever.
Okay. Here's another one. I framed the first letter I got as a police officer from a woman thanking me after I'd supported her through her daughter's suicide. I passed it in my hallway every day for nearly 8 years before realizing the handwriting was the same as on the girl's suicide note. Pretty good.
Yeah, no, that's
Number one comment, he would be a terrible detective.
The comments
Very
do.
true.
The comments do break the tension, thank God.
You want to do another?
I would love to. You hear your mom calling you into the kitchen. As you are heading down the stairs, you hear a whisper from the closet saying, "Don't go down there, honey. I heard it too."
Now, I'm a big fan of these. This kind of brings into, what is the Native American folklore? Skinwalkers, I think they're called.
Mm-hmm.
Those sort of shapeshifters that are like not deer.
Right.
Love those. Love those. So we mentioned that there are some bad ones. There's a great Twitter account called @bad2sentence, bad the number 2 sentence. And I want to read, I have 2 of them here that I want to read. My son always wanted to be a part of the Blue Man Group. He cried tears of joy as my hands wrapped around his throat. That was submitted actually to the proper 2-sentence horror sub.
Oh no.
Here's another one. This one cracks me up. Gosh, I really hope I don't get hit with a big club today. Bonk. Oh, these are terrific.
There's one. It's one that we read before that I still want to read, just because we're here. So this is also from the Reddit. The Reddit makes me sound like I am not a millennial. You always loved playing Among Us, Cheryl said as she looked down at her son's grave. Too bad I was the imposter.
Oh my God.
Come the hell on.
Okay. What do you say we dive into story number 2?
Yes, this one is a Rick pick. Rick pick. We need to have like little jingles for whenever we do like whose pick it was for stories or games.
Yeah, and the people listening are going to write in the Discord, well, you two are musicians, why don't you write them?
So we also have a Patreon. And for the and for the right donation, we can write our own, or maybe even have someone else write our own individual jingles for the pick songs. So there.
So this story is called The Pale Man by Julius Long, and this is actually one of the first ones that, or maybe it wasn't one of the first ones, but it was featured in an older Stuff You Should Know Halloween special, and I remember really liking it. It's shorter, so I dug it up, sent it to Ben, and I think we're going to read that one.
Right on, baby. You take it away.
Here is The Pale Man by Julius Long. I've not yet met the man in number 212. I do not even know his name. He never patronizes the hotel restaurant, and he does not use the lobby. On the 3 occasions when we passed each other by, we did not speak, although we nodded in a semi-cordial, non-committal way. I should like very much to make his acquaintance. It is lonesome in this dreary place. With the exception of the aged lady down the corridor, the only permanent guests are the man in number 212 and myself. However, I should not complain, for this utter quiet is precisely what the doctor prescribed. I wonder if the man in number 212, too, has come here for a rest. He is so very pale, yet I cannot believe that he is ill, for his paleness is not of a sickly cast, but rather wholesome in its ivory clarity. His carriage is that of a man enjoying the best of health. He is tall and straight. He walks erectly and with a brisk, athletic stride. His pallor is no doubt congenital, else he would quickly tan under this burning summer sun. He must have traveled here by auto, for he certainly was not a passenger on the train that brought me, and he checked in only a short time after my arrival. I had briefly rested in my room and was walking down the stairs when I encountered him ascending with his bag. It is odd that our venerable bellboy did not show him to his room. It is odd, too, that with so many vacant rooms in the hotel, he should have chosen number 212 at the extreme rear. The building is a long, narrow affair 3 stories high. The rooms are all on the east side, as the west wall is flush with a decrepit business building. The corridor is long and drab, and its stiff, bloated paper exudes a musty, unpleasant odor. The feeble electric bulbs that light it shine dimly as from a tomb. Revolted by this corridor, I insisted vigorously upon being given number 201, which is at the front and blessed with southern exposure. The room clerk, a disagreeable fellow with a Hitler mustache, was very reluctant to let me have it, as it is ordinarily reserved for his more profitable transient trade. I fear my stubborn insistence has made him an enemy.
If only I had been as self-assertive 30 years ago. I should now be a full-fledged professor instead of a broken-down assistant. I still smart from the cavalier manner in which the president of the university summarily recommended my vacation. No doubt he acted for my best interests. The people who have dominated my poor life invariably have. Oh well, the summer's rest will probably do me considerable good. It is pleasant to be away from the university. There is something positively gratifying about the absence of the graduate student face. If only it were not so lonely, I must devise a way of meeting the pale man in number 212. Perhaps the room clerk can arrange matters. I have been here exactly a week, and if there is a friendly soul in this miserable little town, he has escaped my notice. Although the tradespeople accept my money with flattering eagerness, they studiously avoid even the most casual conversation. I'm afraid I can never cultivate their society unless I can arrange to have my ancestors recognized as local residents for the last 150 years. Despite the coolness of my reception, I have been frequently venturing abroad. In the back of my mind, I have cherished hopes that I might encounter the pale man in number 211. Incidentally, I wonder why he has moved from number 212. There is certainly little advantage in coming only 1 room nearer to the front. I noticed the change yesterday when I saw him coming out of his new room.
We nodded again, and this time I thought I detected a certain malign satisfaction in his somber black eyes. He must know that I am eager to make his acquaintance, yet his manner forbids overtures. If he wants to make me go all the way, he can go to the devil. I am not the sort to run after anybody. Indeed, the surly diffidence of the room clerk has been enough to prevent me from questioning him about his mysterious guest. We got a mystery on our hands, Benjamin.
I know. Well, it's getting very curious, isn't it? Especially when you look at this room change.
I wonder where the pale man takes his meals. I've been absenting myself from the hotel restaurant and patronizing the restaurants outside. At each, I have ventured inquiries about the man in number 210. No one at any restaurant remembered his having been there. Perhaps he has entrance into the Brahmin homes of this town. And again, he may have found a boarding house. I shall have to learn if there be one. The pale man must be difficult to please, for he has again changed his room. I am baffled by his conduct. If he is so desirous of locating himself more conveniently in the hotel, why does he not move to number 202, which is the nearest available room to the front? Perhaps I can make his inability to locate himself permanently an excuse for starting a conversation. I see we are closer neighbors now, I might casually say. But that is too banal. I must await a better opportunity.
He has done it again. He is now occupying number 209. I'm intrigued by his little game. I waste hours trying to fathom its point. What possible motive could he have? I should think he would get on the hotel people's nerves. I wonder what our combination bellhop chambermaid thinks of having to prepare 4 rooms for a single guest. If he were not stone deaf, I would ask him. At present, I feel too exhausted to attempt such an enervating conversation. I am tremendously interested in the pale man's next move. He must either skip a room or remain where he is, for a permanent guest, a very old lady, occupies number 208. She has not budged from her room since I have been here, and I imagine that she does not intend to. I wonder what the pale man will do. I await his decision with the nervous excitement of a devotee of the track on the eve of a big race. After all, I have so little diversion.
Well, the mysterious guest was not forced to remain where he was, nor did he have to skip a room. The lady in number 208 simplified matters by conveniently dying. No one knows the cause of her death, but it is generally attributed to old age. She was buried this morning. I was among the curious few who attended her funeral. When I returned home from the mortuary, I was in time to see the pale man leaving her room. Already he has moved in. He favored me with a smile whose meaning I have tried in vain to decipher. I cannot but believe that he meant it to have some significance. He acted as if there were between us some secret that I failed to appreciate. But then, perhaps his smile was meaningless after all, and only ambiguous by chance, like that of the Mona Lisa. My man of mystery now resides in number 207, and I am not the least surprised. I would have been astonished if he had not made his scheduled move. I have almost given up trying to understand his eccentric conduct. I do not know a single thing more about him than I knew the day he arrived. I wonder whence he came. There is something indefinably foreign about his manner. I am curious to hear his voice. I like to imagine that he speaks the exotic tongue of some faraway country. If only I could somehow inveigle him into conversation. I wish that I were possessed of the glib assurance of a college boy who can address himself to the most distinguished celebrity without batting an eye. It is no wonder that I am only an assistant, Professor.
I am worried. This morning I awoke to find myself lying prone upon the floor. I was fully clothed. I must have fallen exhausted there after I returned to my room last night. I wonder if my condition is more serious than I had suspected. Until now I have been inclined to discount the fears of those who have pulled a long face about me. For the first time I recall the prolonged hand clasp of the president when he bade me goodbye from the university. Obviously, he never expected to see me alive again. Of course, I am not that unwell. Nevertheless, I must be more careful. Thank heaven I have no dependents to worry about. I have not even a wife, for I was never willing to exchange the loneliness of a bachelor for the loneliness of a husband.
I like that line a lot.
Yeah, right? I was just going to say, that's, I can say in all sincerity that the prospect of death does not frighten me. Speculation about life beyond the grave has always bored me. Whatever it is, or is not, I'll try to get along. I have been so preoccupied about the sudden turn of my own affairs that I have neglected to make note of a most extraordinary incident. The Pale Man has done an astounding thing. He has skipped 3 rooms and moved all the way down to number 203. We are now very close neighbors. We shall meet oftener, and my chances for making his acquaintance are now greater.
I've confined myself to my bed during the last few days and have had my food brought to me. I even called a local doctor, whom I suspect to be a quack. He looked me over with professional indifference and told me not to leave my room. For some reason, he does not want me to climb stairs. For this bit of information, he received a $10 bill, which, as I directed him, he fished out of my coat pocket. A pickpocket could not have done it better. He had not been gone long when I was visited by the room clerk. That worthy suggested with a great show of kindly concern that I use the facilities of the local hospital. It was so modern and all that. With more firmness than I have been able to muster in a long time, I gave him to understand that I intended to remain where I am. Frowning sullenly, he stiffly retired. The doctor must have paused long enough downstairs to tell him a pretty story. It is obvious that he is afraid I shall die in his best room. The Pale Man is up to his old tricks. Last night, when I tottered down the hall, the door of number 202 was ajar. Without thinking, I looked inside. The Pale Man sat in a rocking chair, idly smoking a cigarette. He looked up into my eyes and smiled that peculiar, ambiguous smile that has so deeply puzzled me. I moved on down the corridor, not so much mystified as annoyed. The whole mystery of the man's conduct is beginning to irk me. It is all so inane, so utterly lacking in motive. I feel that I shall never meet the Pale Man, but at least I am going to learn his identity. Tomorrow I shall ask for the room clerk and deliberately interrogate him.
I know now. I know the identity of the Pale Man, and I know the meaning of his smile. Early this afternoon I summoned the room clerk to my bedside. "Please tell me," I asked abruptly, "who is the man in 202? The clerk stared wearily and uncomprehendingly. "You must be mistaken. That room is unoccupied." "Oh, but it is," I snapped in irritation. "I myself saw the man there only 2 nights ago. He is a tall, handsome fellow, with dark eyes and hair. He is unusually pale. He checked in the day that I arrived." The hotel man regarded me dubiously, as if I were trying to impose upon him. "But I assure you there is no such person in the house. As for his checking in when you did, you were the only guest we registered that day." "What? Why, I've seen him 20 times. First he had number 212 at the end of the corridor. Then he kept moving toward the front. Now he's next door in number 202. The room clerk threw up his hands. "You're crazy," he exclaimed, and I saw that he meant what he had said.
I shut up at once and dismissed him. After he had gone, I heard him rattling the knob of the Pale Man's door. There is no doubt that he believes the room to be empty. Thus it is that I can now understand the events of the past few weeks. I now comprehend the significance of the death in number 207. I even feel partly responsible for the old lady's passing. After all, I brought the Pale Man with me. But it was not I who fixed his path. Why he chose to approach me room after room through the length of this dreary hotel, why his path crossed the threshold of the woman in number 207, those mysteries I cannot explain. I suppose I should have guessed his identity when he skipped the 3 rooms the night I fell unconscious upon the floor. In a single night of triumph he advanced until he was almost to my door. He will be coming by and by to inhabit this room, his ultimate goal. when he comes, I shall at least be able to return his smile of grim recognition. Meanwhile, I have only to wait beyond my bolted door. The door swings slowly open. And scene.
That's a good find, Rick.
This is a good one. I like this one a lot. I liked it more than I remembered.
What was your first experience with this?
I first heard it on Stuff You Should Know. I don't remember the exact episode, but they read this one aloud. This part of one of their yearly picks. And I remembered liking it quite a bit.
It's very intriguing, and it's very captivating, and it's by this Julius Long, who is an American writer, 1907 to 1955. I want to find more of his stuff because this is written in a very compelling fashion.
What I like the most about it is, there's a couple of different ways that you can read who the Pale Man is. What did you think? What's your take? What's the deal with the Pale Man?
Well, that's the beauty and the complication for me, is that, like, I'm reading this and I'm seeing this from a number of perspectives, which is kind of the problem for me, because I see behind door number 1 we have the Pale Man is the Grim Reaper. Behind door number 2, this assistant professor has lost his mind and is seeing things. These are the things I don't know how to interpret it. How did you interpret this?
Well, I think the most logical interpretation is that the Pale Man is death. And I think we can understand that by the Pale Man not only taking the old lady's life, but they alluded to the fact that this professor, something is wrong with him. Like, he's not well physically. Like, he's not well. They thought he was going to die, so he's sick.
Right.
But the thing that complicates that reading is the paragraph. I mean, I even feel partly responsible for the old lady's passing. That can just be a turn of phrase. It's the paragraph that says, "I suppose I should have guessed his identity when he skipped the 3 rooms the night I fell unconscious. In a single night of triumph, he advanced until he was almost to my door." I think that is the paragraph that complicates the reading of it just being the Grim Reaper, and kind of adds this element in, maybe it is a combination of death and an unknowable horror that we can't comprehend, like a Lovecraftian thing.
What's interesting to me is that, he is seen by, the main character, by whom we are, right? But nobody else really seems to notice him.
Right, and that adds to the reading that maybe it's death. It adds to the reading maybe it's this cosmic being that is somehow attached to this man. It can be anything. We know it's not just a guy. That much we know.
This is a great find. I really liked this. Scary stories for me are more about intrigue. I've seen enough scary things in my life that, these things don't generally unsettle me, but if something can really draw me in, which this poem did, I'm pretty happy. So thank you for exposing me to this Pale Man, Richard.
It's a pretty good one. Now let's expose the listeners to a few more of these 2-sentence horrors.
After you, darling.
I got a serious one here. I like this one. When the tsunamis hit, most people were evacuated. Feeling the trickle of water rise to my chin, I let go of the prison bars in bitter resentment. Love that one.
Ooh. This makes me not want to read the one that I have that is a silly one.
Do you have another serious one?
I've got plenty of serious ones, but I'm also looking at some silly ones, which we can do in a little bit. Let me find the one that I just saw.
While you're looking, I pulled up another one. For my last wish, I wished my dad to be alive again. I stood atop his grave and smiled, imagining him screaming and clawing at his coffin lid as he did the 2 previous times I wished him back. Oh, this one's not good.
That's
one's
great.
not
That's
good.
great.
That's dumb.
Here, do you want me to do one?
Please, please.
I can't move, breathe, speak, or hear. And it's so dark all the time. If I knew it would be this lonely, I would have been cremated instead. Number 1 comment says, that's scary.
Pretty good. Pretty good. All right, I've got one more serious one
Okay.
before we get into the ridiculous ones.
Yes.
Bullets flew through the mall, ripping clothes to shreds. In the chaos, no one noticed the mannequins bleeding.
Oh, okay. Okay, I see. All right.
Good. Pretty good.
I awoke to the sound of the baby monitor crackling with a voice comforting my firstborn child. As I adjusted to a new position, my arm brushed against my wife sleeping next to me.
This one kind of goes back to that sort of skinwalker kind of vibe. Something is taking the identity of your loved ones, that kind of thing. Okay, this one is just silly, but never toy with black widows. They bite you in the balls.
What the hell
I don't
is
know.
this? What the hell?
I don't know.
I've got one silly one too. This one is broken. I heard strange noises in the doctor. I'm sorry, I need to start again. I heard strange noises in the doctor's office. I was shocked to find out there were screaming orphans in the basement.
Sure, why not?
It's not a horror story. That's like there are screaming children down here.
All right, I have one more funny one that actually made me laugh out loud when I found it. And this one is important to remember. The subject is first, and then the body of the text is next. Okay. Martin Luther King, Kanye West, and a white guy walk into a bar. This post has been removed. Oh, I love it. I love bad 2-sentence horror.
The good ones are really, really impressive. The bad ones are like, okay, did you even try?
Some things are better left undisturbed.
Mm-hmm.
As we will see in our next and final story of today, this one, I hesitate to call it a Ben pick, because we both, when we talked about doing this topic, we were both like, oh yeah, that one makes sense to do. And it was also recommended by at some Toph, one of our Discord members. Chris is probably Chris is his name. Sorry, I had a brain fart moment.
We all do.
This is the quote-unquote classic creepypasta, Ben Drowned.
I think that I had spoken with you whenever we were looking at spooky games to do, and we were thinking about maybe the potential of a topic, and this thing just sprung into my brain as oh, what if we did some creepypastas? But as you and I were talking, there are a lot of creepypastas that just are not very good.
Yeah, a lot of them are not written well, and I don't really think this one is super great either, if I'm being totally honest, but it felt like something that we should do.
As a video game podcast, and if we're going to be reading creepy stories, I feel like we have to do this once, and then we don't have to do it ever again.
This one is also not difficult, but it has a visual element to it with some of the parts in the form of videos and screenshots that we can't obviously replicate, which is part of what makes creepypastas successful. But we will do our best to do a complete reading of the story.
Absolutely, we will. So, shall we begin with the creepypasta known as Ben Drowned?
Yeah. I don't like how this one, the writing style at the beginning of this, I just don't like. But yes, let's do it.
I know what you mean.
This is Ben Drowned. Post number 1, September 7th, 2010. Okay, X, I need your help with this. This is not copypasta, this is a long read, but I feel like my safety or well-being could very well depend on this. This is video game related, specifically Majora's Mask, and this is the creepiest shit that has ever happened to me in my entire life. Having said that, I recently moved into my dorm room starting as a sophomore in college, and a friend of mine gave me his old Nintendo 64 to play. I was stoked, to say the least. I could finally play all of those old games of my youth that I hadn't touched in at least a decade. His Nintendo 64 came with one yellow controller and a rather shoddy-looking copy of Super Smash Bros., and while beggars can't be choosers, needless to say, it didn't take long until I became bored of beating up level 9 CPUs. That weekend, I decided to drive around a few neighborhoods about 20 minutes or so off campus, hitting up the local garage sales, hoping to score on some good deals from ignorant parents. I ended up picking up a copy of Pokemon Stadium, GoldenEye, and in parentheses it says, fuck yeah. F-Zero, and 2 other controllers for $2. Satisfied, I began to drive out of the neighborhood when one last house caught my attention. I still have no idea why it did. There were no cars there and only one table was set up with random junk on it, but something sort of drew me there. I usually trust my gut on these things, so I got out of the car and I was greeted by an old man. His outward appearance was, for a lack of a better word, displeasing. It was odd. If you ask me to tell you why I thought he was displeasing, I couldn't really pinpoint anything. There was just something about him that put me on edge. I can't explain it. All I can tell you is that if it wasn't in the middle of the afternoon and there were other people within shouting distance, I would not have even thought of approaching this man. He flashed a crooked smile at me and asked what I was looking for, and immediately I noticed that he must be blind in one of his eyes. His right eye had that glazed-over look about it. I forced myself to look to his left eye instead, trying not to offend, and asked him if he had any old video games.
I was already wondering how I could politely excuse myself from the situation when he would tell me that he had no idea what a video game was. But to my surprise, he said he had a few ones in an old box. He assured me he'd be back in a jiffy and turned to head back into the garage. As I watched him hobble away, I couldn't help but notice what he was selling on his table. Littered across his table were rather peculiar paintings, various artworks that looked like ink blots that a psychiatrist might show you. Curious, I looked through them. It was obvious why no one was visiting this guy's garage sale. These weren't exactly aesthetically pleasing. As I came to the last one, for some reason, it looked almost like Majora's Mask. The same heart-shaped body with these little spikes protruding outward. Initially, I just thought that since I was secretly hoping to find that game at these garage sales, some Freudian bullshit was projecting itself into the ink blots. But given the events that happened afterwards, I'm not so sure now. I should have asked the man about it. I wish I would have asked the man about it. After staring at the Majora-shaped blot, I looked up, and the old man was suddenly there again, arm's length in front of me, smiling at me. I'll admit I jumped out of reflex, and I laughed very nervously as he handed me a Nintendo 64 cartridge. It was the standard gray color, except that someone had written Majora on it in black permanent marker. I got butterflies in my stomach as I realized what a coincidence this was, and asked him how much he wanted for it. The old man smiled at me and told me that I could have it for free, that it used to belong to a kid who was about my age that didn't live here anymore. There was something weird about how the man phrased that, but I didn't really pay any attention to it then. I was too caught up in not only finding this game, but getting it for free.
You always got to be careful of strange old people giving away stuff for free.
Rick, if I am so privileged to live to be an old man, I will never give away Majora's Mask, that is all.
Or you could, and you will scare to death at least one person who has heard of this story.
You know what I would do? I would get some Goo Gone, and I would take off the cover of a gray Nintendo 64 game, and I would just write Majora on it, and I'd just give it to a kid.
I reminded myself to be a bit skeptical, since this looked like a pretty shady cartridge and there's no guarantee it would work, but then the optimist inside me interjected that maybe it was some kind of beta version or pirated version of the game, and that was all I needed to be back on Cloud 9. I thanked the man, and the man smiled at me and wished me well, saying, "Goodbye then." At least that's what it sounded like to me. All the way in the car ride home, I had a nagging doubt that the man had said something else. My fears were confirmed when I booted up the game. To my surprise, it worked just fine, and there was only one save file, simply named Ben. "Goodbye, Ben," he was saying. "Goodbye, Ben." I felt bad for the man, obviously a grandparent and obviously going senile, and I, for some reason or another, reminded him of his grandson, Ben. Out of curiosity, I looked at the save file. Eyeballing it, I could tell that he was pretty far in the game. He had almost all of the masks and 3/4 remains of the bosses. I noticed that he had used an owl statue to save his game. He was on day 3 and by the Stone Tower Temple with hardly an hour left before the moon would crash. I remember thinking that it was a shame that he had come so close to beating the game, but he never finished it. I made a new file named Link out of tradition and started the game, ready to relive my childhood. For such a shady-looking game cartridge, I was impressed at how smoothly it ran. Literally just like a retail copy of the game, save for a few minor hiccups here and there, like textures being where they shouldn't be, random flashes of cutscenes at odd intervals, but nothing too bad. However, the only thing that was a little unnerving was that at times the NPCs would call me Link, and at other times they would call me Ben. I figured it was just a bug, a fluke in the programming causing our files to get mixed up or something. It did kind of creep me out, though, after a while, and it was around after I had beaten the Woodfall Temple that I regrettably went into the save files and deleted Ben. I had intended to preserve the file just out of respect of the game's original owner. It's not like I needed 2 files anyway. Hoping that that would solve the problem. It did, and it didn't. Now NPCs wouldn't call me anything. Where my name should be in the dialogue, there was just a blank space. My save file name was still called Link, though. Frustrated, and with homework to do, I put the game down for a day. I started playing the game again last night, getting the Lens of Truth and working my way towards completing the Snowhead Temple. Now, some of you more hardcore Majora's Mask players know about the 4th day glitch. For those who don't, you can Google it, but the gist of it is that right as the clock is about to hit 0 on the final day, you talk to the astronomer and look through the telescope. If you time it right, the countdown disappears and you essentially have another day to finish whatever you were doing. Deciding to do the glitch to try and finish the Snowhead Temple, I happened to get it right on the first try, and the time counter at the bottom disappeared. However, when I pressed B to exit the telescope, instead of being greeted by the astronomer, I found myself in the Majora boss fight room at the end of the game, the trippy boxed-in arena, staring at Skull Kid hovering above me. There was no sound, just him floating in the air above me, and the background music which was regular for the area, but still creepy. Immediately my palms began to sweat. This was definitely not normal. Skull Kid never appeared here. I tried moving around the area, and no matter where I went, Skull Kid would always be facing me, looking at me, not saying anything. Nothing would happen, though, and this kept up for around 60 seconds. I thought the game had bugged or something, but I was beginning to doubt that very much.
I was about to reach for the reset button when text appeared on my screen. You're not sure why, but you apparently had a reservation. I instantly recognized that text. You get that message when you get the room key from Anju at the Stockpot Inn. But why was it playing here? I refused to entertain the notion that it was almost as if the game was trying to communicate with me. I started to navigate the room again, testing to see if that was some sort of trigger that enabled me to interact with something here. Then I realized how stupid I was. To even think that someone could reprogram the game like this was absurd. Sure enough, 15 seconds later, another message appeared on the screen. And again, like the first one, it was already pre-existing phrase, go to the lair of the temple's boss, yes or no. I paused for a second, contemplating what I should press and how the game would react. When I realized that I couldn't select no, taking a deep breath, I pressed yes, and the screen faded to white with the words "Dawn of a New Day," with the subtext, and these are a bunch of vertical lines, beneath it. Where I was ported to filled me with the most intense sense of dread and impending fear I had ever experienced. The only way I can describe the way I felt here is having this feeling of inexplicable depression on a profound scale. I am not normally a depressed person, but the way I felt here was a feeling that I didn't even know existed. It was such a twisted, powerful presence that seemed to wash over me. I appeared in some kind of weird Twilight Zone version of Clocktown. I walked out of the clock tower, as you normally do when you start from day one, only to find that all of its inhabitants were gone. Usually with the fourth day glitch, you can still find the guards and the dog that runs around outside the tower. This time they were all gone. What replaced them was the ominous feeling that there was something out there in the same area as me and that it was watching me. I had 4 hearts to my name and the hero's bow, but at this point I wasn't even considered for my avatar. I felt that I personally was in some kind of danger. Perhaps the most chilling thing was the music. It was the Song of Healing, ripped straight from the game itself, but played in reverse. The music would get louder, building up so as if you should expect something to pop out at you, but nothing ever did, and the constant loop began to wear on my mental state.
Every now and then I would hear the faint laugh of the happy mask salesman in the background. Just quiet enough so that I wasn't sure if I was just hearing things, but just loud enough to keep me determined to find him. I looked in all 4 zones of Clocktown, only to find nothing. No one. Textures were missing. West Clocktown had me walking on air. The entire area felt broken. Hopelessly broken. As the reverse Song of Healing repeated for what must have been the 50th time, I just remember standing in the middle of South Clocktown, realizing that I had never felt so alone in a video game before. As I walked through the ghost town, I don't know whether it was the combination of the out-of-place textures and the atmosphere and the haunting melody of the once peaceful and soothing song being butchered and distorted, but I was literally on the verge of tears, and I had no idea why. I hardly ever cry. Something had gripped me here, and this powerful sense of depression that was both foreign and crippling. I tried leaving Clocktown, but every time I attempted to zone out, the screen would fade to black, and I would just zone into another part of Clocktown. I tried playing my ocarina. I wanted to escape, and I did not want to be here. But every time I played the Song of Time, or Song of Soaring, it would only say, "Your notes echo far, but nothing happens." By this point, it was obvious the game didn't want me to leave, but I had no idea why it was keeping me here. I didn't want to go inside the buildings. I felt that I would be too vulnerable there to whatever I was terrified of. I don't know why, but I came up with the idea that maybe if I drowned myself at the laundry pool, I could spawn somewhere else and leave this place. As I zoned in and ran towards the pool, that's when it happened. Link grabbed his head, and the screen flashed for a brief moment of the happy mask salesman smiling at me. Not Link. Me, with Skull Kid's scream playing in the background, and when the screen returned, I was staring at the Link statue from playing the song Elegy of Emptiness. I screamed as the thing just stared back at me with that haunting facial expression. I turned around and ran out and back into South Clocktown, and to my horror, the fucking statue followed me, and the only way I can compare this is like the weeping angels from Doctor Who. Every so often, at random intervals, the animation would play of the statue appearing before me. It was like the thing was chasing me, or, I don't even want to fucking say it, haunting me.
By this point, I was on the verge of hysterics, but not even once did the thought of turning off the console occur to me. I don't know why. I was so wrapped up in it. The terror felt all so real. I tried to shake the statue, but it would literally appear right behind me every single time. Link started to begin to make weird animations I had never even seen him do before. He would flail his arms around or spasm randomly, and the screen would cut to the happy mask salesman smiling again for a brief moment before I was face to face with that fucking statue again. I ended up running into the Swordmaster's dojo, and I ran to the back. I don't know why, but in my panic, I just wanted some kind of assurance that I'm not alone here. To my dismay, I found no one, but as I turned to leave, the statue cornered me in the cubby in the back. I tried attacking the statue with my sword, but to no avail. Confused and backed into a corner, I just stared at the statue, waiting for it to kill me. Suddenly, the screen flashed again to the happy mask salesman, and Link turned to face my screen, standing upright, mirroring the statue, looking at me along with his copy, literally staring at me. Whatever was left of the fourth wall was completely shattered while I ran out of the dojo terrified. Suddenly the game warped me to an underground tunnel, and the reverse song of healing queued up again, and I was given a brief moment of rest before the statue started appearing behind me again. This time aggressively. I could only take a few steps before it would summon behind me again. I hurriedly made my way out of the tunnel and appeared in southern Clocktown. I ran aimlessly in a sheer panic. Suddenly, a redhead screamed, and the screen faded to black as dawn of a new day, and those vertical lines appeared again.
Did you say redhead?
Redhead, I did. I'm going to go back to that sentence. I didn't know if they were trying, because like there's some things in this, the southern Clocktown, I was like, it's technically South Clocktown. And I was like, a redhead, I was like, they mean Romani, but okay.
Yeah, there are some typos in here that we're trying to smooth over,
which we'll definitely bring up at the end of this. So, I'm going to redo that sentence. As I ran aimlessly in a sheer panic, suddenly a redhead screamed, and the screen faded to black as dawn of a new day, and those vertical lines appeared again. The screen faded in, and I was standing on top of Clock Tower with Skull Kid hovering over me again, silent. I looked up, and the moon was back, looming just meters above my head. But the Skull Kid just stared at me hauntingly with that fucking mask. A new song was playing, the Stone Tower Temple theme played in reverse. In some sort of desperate attempt, I equipped my bow and fired off a shot at the Skull Kid. It actually hit him, and he played an animation of him reeling back. I fired again, and on the third arrow, a text box appeared saying, "That won't do you any good. Hee hee." And I was picked up off the ground, levitated upwards on my back, and then Link screamed as he burst into flames, instantly killing him. I jumped when this happened. I had never seen this move used by anyone in the game, and Skull Kid himself didn't have any moves. As the death screen played, my lifeless body still burning, the Skull Kid laughed and the screen faded to black, only to have me reappear in the same place. I decided to charge him, but the same thing happened. Link's body was lifted off the ground by some unknown force, and he immediately burst into flames again, killing him. This time during the death screen, the faint sounds of the Song of Healing in reverse could be heard. On my third and final try, I noticed that there was no music playing this time, that all there was eerie silence. I remembered that in the original encounter with Skull Kid, you were supposed to use the ocarina to either travel back in time or summon the giants. I attempted to play the Song of Time, but before I could hit the last note, Link's body once again horrifically exploded into flames and he died.
As the death screen neared its ending, it began to chug, as if the cartridge was trying to process a lot of something. When the screen came to, it was the same scene as the first 3 times, except this time Link was lying on the ground dead, in a position I had never seen in the game before, his head tilted towards the camera with the Skull Kid floating above him. I couldn't move. I couldn't press any buttons. All I could do was just stare at Link's dead body. After around 30 seconds of this, the game simply fades out with the message, "You've met with a terrible fate, haven't you?" before kicking you out to the title screen. Upon getting back to the title screen and starting again, I noticed my save file was no longer there. Instead of Link, it was replaced with "Your Turn" in all caps. Your Turn had 3 hearts, 0 masks, and no items. I selected Your Turn, and immediately when I did, I was returned to the clock tower rooftop scene of my Link dead and the Skull Kid hovering over, with the Skull Kids laughing looping again and again. I quickly hit the reset button, and when the game booted up again, there was one more save file added below Your Turn entitled Ben. Ben's save file is right back where it was before I deleted it, at the Stone Tower Temple with the moon almost crashing. I turned the game off at that point. I'm not superstitious, but this is way too fucked up even for me. I haven't played it at all today. Hell, I didn't even get any sleep last night. I kept hearing the reverse song of healing music in my head and just remembering the sense of dread I felt exploring Clocktown. I drove back to the old man's house today to ask him some questions with a buddy of mine. No way I was going there alone. Only to find that there's a for sale sign in the front yard, and when I rang the door, no one was home. So now I'm back here, writing down the rest of my thoughts and recording what happened. Sorry if some of this has grammatical errors and whatnot. It does.
It really does, everybody. It
I'm
really
running
does.
I'm running on no sleep here. I'm terrified of this game, even more so now that I relived it a second time writing this all down. But I feel like there's still more to it than meets the eye, and that there's something calling to me to investigate this further. I think Ben is something in this equation, but I don't know what. And if I could get a hold of the old man, then I would be able to find some answers. I need another day or so to recuperate before tackling this game again. It's already taken a toll on my sanity, I feel like, but next time I do this, I'm going to be recording my footage all the way through. The idea to record only came to me towards the end, so you see the last few minutes of what I saw, including the Skull Kid and the Elegy statue, but it's on YouTube here. I'm going to stay in this thread for a little while longer before I fall asleep to answer any questions you guys might have, or hopefully listen to your ideas or theories to help me shed some light into this, or maybe things I should try to do. I think I'm going to play Ben's file tomorrow to see what happens. Maybe I was supposed to do that all along. I don't believe in paranormal shit, but this is a little fucked up. But maybe this Ben guy is just a really good hacker or programmer. I don't want to think about the alternatives if he isn't. That's the end of the copy-paste. I'm hoping that maybe this is some kind of running gag the developers had and the other people have gotten gag or hacked copies of the game like this. This just really scares me. Whew.
Yes.
That's part 1, folks.
Yes, grammatical errors, yes. There were a few moments you might have noticed Rick and I kind of slowing down, or even if you're reading along with us, finding us substituting some words and arrangement of things. It is helping.
It is helping. So just a quick recap. Kid bought a game at a yard sale, thought it was Majora's Mask. Some spooky shit is going on.
Post number 2, September 8th, 2010. I'm going to post what happened and link the video footage, but last night everything got too real for me. I think I'm done messing around with this. I passed out pretty much immediately after making that thread, but last night the Elegy of Emptiness statue, I had a dream about it. I dreamed that it was following me in my dream, that I would be minding my own business when I'd feel my neck hairs stand up on end. I would turn around, that thing, that horrible lifeless statue would be staring at me with those empty eyes, merely inches away. In my dream, I remember calling it Ben, and never before had I had a dream that I could remember so vividly. But the important thing is, I did get some sleep, I suppose. Today, putting off playing the game as long as I could, I drove back to that neighborhood to see if that old man came back. As I expected, the car was still gone, and no one was home. As I was walking back to my car, the man next door mowing the grass killed the power to his lawnmower and asked me if I was looking for someone. I told him that I was looking to talk to the old man that lived there, to which he told me what I already knew. He was moving. Trying a different avenue, I asked if the old man had any family or relatives I could talk to. I discovered that this old man had never been married, nor did he have any children or grandchildren through adoption. Starting to become worried, I asked one final question. One that I should have been asking from the beginning. Who was Ben? The man's expression turned grim, and I learned that 4 doors down, around 8 years ago on April 23rd, the man informed me that it was the same day as his anniversary. That's how he knew the specific date. There was an accident with a young boy named Ben in the neighborhood, shortly after his parents moved, and despite any further attempts to talk to the man to get more information, he wouldn't divulge anything else. I went back and started playing again. I loaded up the game, and immediately I jumped at the title screen where the mask flies by. The sound that played was not the normal whoosh sound. It was something much more higher pitched. I pressed start, bracing for the worst. But just like 2 nights ago, the files Your Turn and Ben were displayed. Truth be told, I looked at the Ben file earlier. It seems to fluctuate between displaying the owl save and not. I brought up the Ben file, hesitated for a moment, noticing that the starts were not the same as they originally were 2 days ago. It seems like he had already completed the Stone Tower Temple this time. Summoning my courage, I selected it.
Immediately, I was thrust into complete chaos. Sure enough, I was outside Stone Tower Temple, but that's about all that was expected. The zone itself wasn't called Stone Tower Temple, but rather Stone, and that's kind of stylized with a lot of spaces between each letter. And immediately a dialogue box of complete gibberish that I couldn't make out greeted me. Link's body was distorted. His back was cocked violently to the side where his posture was permanently disfigured. Link's expression was dull, almost monotonous. He had an expression on his face that I didn't recognize before. It was a blank look, as if he was dead. As Link stood there, his body spasming irregularly back and forth, I examined what had become of my avatar, and noticed I had a C button item I had never seen before. Some kind of note, but pressing it did nothing. Sounds played back and forth that I didn't recognize from the game, almost demonic in nature, and there was some kind of high-pitched yip or some kind of laugh or something playing in the background. I had all of 2 minutes to take in the environment before another one of those fucking Elegy of Emptiness statues was summoned, and immediately after I was cut into the Dawn of a New Day screen, except this time it was without the vertical line subtext. I was a Deku scrub in Clocktown. This scene would normally play after the first time you traveled back in time. Tattle would say, "What just happened? It's as if everything has..." But instead of saying, "started over," she finished her remark in broken text as the laugh of the happy mask salesman played in the background. I was put back in control of my character, but from a fucked up camera angle. I was looking from behind the door to the clock tower, watching my avatar run around as a Deku scrub. Seeing as how I really had no place to go because I couldn't see anything, I begrudgingly went inside the door. There, I was greeted by the happy mask salesman who simply told me, "You've met with a terrible fate, haven't you?" before the screen whited out. I was in Termina Field again as a human. I might as well not have been playing the same game anymore. I was being warped around and there was no sign of a day clock or anything. I took a moment to get my bearings as I looked around the field, and immediately I could tell that this was not normal. There were no enemies, and a twisted version of the Happy Mask Salesman theme was playing. I decided to run towards Woodfall before I noticed a gathering of 3 figures off to the side, one of them being Ipana. As I approached them, to my horror, I saw the Happy Mask Salesman, the Skull Kid, and the Elegy of Emptiness statue just standing there. I figured maybe they were bugged out, but by now I told myself that I should know better. Nevertheless, I approached them carefully and found that the Skull Kid was playing some kind of idle animation on loop. Same with Ipana, and the Elegy of Emptiness statue was doing what it had been doing all along, just standing there eerily. It was the Happy Mask Salesman that scared me more profoundly than the other 2. He too was idle, wearing that shit-eating grin, but wherever I moved, his head slowly turned and followed me. I had not engaged in any dialogue with him, nor was I in combat with him, yet his head still continued to follow my movements. Reminded of my first encounter with the Skull Kid on top of Clock Tower, I pulled out my ocarina, to which the game played the ding sound when you're supposed to play your ocarina, and tried a song I hadn't played yet. The Happy Mask Salesman's own song, and the song that had been playing on the loop back in day 4, the Song of Healing.
I finished playing the song, and as I did, an ear-piercing shriek blasted on my TV. The sky immediately started flashing. The Happy Mask Salesman's twisted theme song sped up, intensifying the fear inside me, and Link exploded into flames and died. The 3 figures stayed lit up during my death screen as they watched my lifeless body burn. I can't describe to you how sudden and terrifying the transition from eerie to terror it is. You're going to have to watch the video if you want to see firsthand. That same fear caused me to lose sleep 2 days ago. Started to grip me again as I was met with the text, "You've met with a terrible fate, haven't you?" For the 3rd time. There has to be some kind of meaning behind that. I had little time to ponder, as I was immediately given another small cutscene of transforming into Azura, and now I found myself in Great Bay Temple. Hesitant but curious to see what the game had in store for me, I slowly made my way towards the beach, where I found Epona. I wondered why the game had decided to put her here. Was the game implying she was trying to get a drink? Unable to take the mask off, I decided that riding the steed wasn't the reason she was placed there. Suddenly I realized that Epona kept neighing, and the way she was angled made it look like she was trying to signal a point to me off in the distance. It was a hunch, but I dove into Great Bay and started swimming. Sure enough, I almost missed it. I found something at the bottom of the ocean, one last Elegy of Emptiness statue. I went down to examine it, and suddenly my Zora started doing a choking animation I had never seen a Zora do before, which didn't even make sense because Zoras can breathe underwater. Regardless, my character choked to death and died, and again the statue was the only thing that was highlighted in my death. I didn't respawn this time. I was booted back to the main menu as if I restarted the console. The press start screen was before me. I knew the only reason why it would put me here is because the saved files had changed again. Taking a deep breath, I pressed start, and I was right. The new save files told me about Ben. Now it made sense why the statue appeared when I tried to go to the laundry pool. The game must have anticipated how I would have tried to escape the day 4 o'clock town. The 2 save files told me his fate. As I suspected, Ben was dead. He had drowned. The game obviously isn't through with me. It taunts me with new save files. It wants me to keep playing. It wants me to go further. But I'm done with this shit. I'm not touching any more of the files. This is already way too horrifying for me, and I don't even believe in the paranormal. But I'm running out of explanations. Why would someone send me this message? I don't understand it. I just get too depressed thinking about this. The footage is up here for those who want to see it and try and analyze it. Maybe there's some kind of coded message in the gibberish or something symbolic in what I went through. I'm too emotionally and mentally drained to fuck with it anymore.
We're getting spookier and spookier as we go along.
I'm shaking, Rick.
Can I say, the one thing I notice about a lot of creepypasta writing is they really love to use set phrases and tropes like, I was filled with terror,
Yes.
or I was filled with fear, burst into flames and died. I don't know. I don't know. We could talk at the end.
Yeah, I feel you, though.
Post number 3, September 10th, 2010. I know it's early in the morning. I've stayed up all night. I can't sleep. I don't care if people see this. That's not the point. I just want the word to get spread so I don't suffer for nothing. I've lost the will to type about this. The less I dwell on this, the better. I think the video just speaks for itself. I did what you guys told me to do. I played the Elegy of Emptiness song at the first prompt by the game I was given, but I think that's what the game, or Ben... Jesus Christ, I can't believe I'm even humoring the absurd idea that he exists in the game, wanted me to do. He's following me now. Not just in the game, he's in my dreams. I see him all the time, behind my back, just watching me. I haven't gone to any of my classes. I've stayed in my dorm room with the windows closed and the blinds shut. That way I know he can't watch me. But he still gets me when I play. When I play, he can still see me. The game is scaring me now. It talked to me for the first time. not just using text that's already in the game. It spoke to me, talked to me. It referenced Ben. It talked to me. I don't know what it means. I don't know what it wants. I never wanted this. I just want my old life back. Stuff like this doesn't happen to people like me. I'm just a kid, not even old enough to drink yet. It's not fair. I want to go home. I want to see my parents again. I'm so far away from home here at this school. I just want to hug my mom again. I just want to forget that statue's horrible blank face. My original game file is back, just the way I left it before it was gone. I don't want to play anymore. I feel like something bad will happen if I don't, but that's impossible. It's a video game. Haunted or not, it can't hurt me, right? Like, seriously, though, it can't, right? That's what I keep telling myself, but every time I think about it, I'm not so sure. That was a little shorty post.
It was. Now we're in post 4, September 12, 2010. Let me just clear things up. I know you guys are worried about Jadu Sable, okay? I never knew how to actually pronounce his name. I think it's Jadu Sable.
Jaduceable.
Jaduceable, that's what I'll say. He finished moving out today, and he said he's going back home. He's just taking the semester off. I'm not really sure what's happened. I have a vague idea, but you guys probably know more than I do. I'm Jaduceble's roommate, and obviously I knew something was wrong with him for a few days now. He stayed in his room all of the time, fell out of contact with literally all of his friends, and I'm pretty sure he hadn't been eating hardly anything. After the second day, I couldn't stay in there anymore, so I've been crashing at a buddy's place, only coming into my room to get stuff that I need. I tried talking to him several times, but he would cut me off or keep the conversation brief when I asked him about his strange behavior. It was like he was convinced something was hunting him. Yesterday, I came to grab my philosophy book, and he approached me looking awful, like horrible bags under his eyes. He handed me a flash drive and gave me specific instructions. He told me that he needs me to do one last favor for him. He finally explained to me what has been going on and gave me the account info to his YouTube account and told me that he's getting away from here, that it lured him to play it again instead of trying to change things, and that he shouldn't have done any of that, and to upload the footage and inform people what happened. I told him that he could do it himself. He got this wild look in his eye and told me that he is never looking at that game again, and that's the last thing he ever said to me. He never even said bye when his parents came to pick him up. I never even got to meet his parents. I honestly can't tell you what happened. When he spoke, it was kind of hard to understand him, and his fucked up appearance really distracted me. On the flash drive was the footage of the game last night, a text document with his name and password for YouTube, and a third document called thetruth.txt, containing what he told me were his notes that he'd taken. He told me that this meant everything to him, that I follow his instructions exactly. Normally I wouldn't be so to the letter for request over a fucking video game, but the way he spoke and the way he looked at me made me know this was really serious, and I'm going to honor that. I've had this video since yesterday, but had to have someone help me use Pinnacle. That's not really my forte. That after watching it, I had to go back through and look at his other videos on his YouTube account to realize what was going on, and even then I'm really confused. The video I'm releasing tonight, thetruth.txt, will be released on September 15th, just like he requested. I haven't dared peek at it yet, so for the first time I see it will be the first time you see it, out of respect to my friend. To answer your questions, no, I haven't tried calling him yet. I think I'll give him a call tomorrow to see if he's okay or not. He should have gotten back home by now. About the video. In this video, I cut straight to when he loaded the Ben file in the game. Looking back, I realized that Jaduceable left the saved select screen in because it said different names sometimes, so my bad for that. But all it said this time was that the same at the end of his last video, Lincoln Ben, nothing different. I wasn't there when he played it, but it looks to me like in the beginning, when he first spawns, he's testing out his equipment or seeing what items he has or something, because apparently they've changed randomly before. Then, After that, I just think the game got too personal for him.
Post number 5, September 15th, 2010. Hey guys, Jaduzable here. This will be the last time you will be hearing from me, and this is my final gift to you. These are the notes that I have taken and the realizations that I've made. Before I delve into this, I want to thank you for following me and thank you for listening. It feels like the weight of a powerful burden is about to be lifted. By the time you read this, I won't be around anymore, but after spending 4 days with this maddening game, I've begun to understand what's really at play here, and hopefully after reading this we can ensure that this never happens again. There are things that I could not share with you while this was going on due to the circumstances to which I'll explain. With Ben blocking any attempt I made to try and relay the truth to you, I tried, ever so subtly, to warn you guys in various ways. Amidst the chaos and my delirium, I devised a barely noticeable pattern in my videos. In all 5 videos I recorded over the 4 days, I have either had the mask of truth, interacted with a gossip stone, or the lens of truth equipped at some point. For you Zelda enthusiasts, these are all symbols of honesty and trustworthiness, and I would hope that one of you may have picked up on the references. As I played the file which I would name Ben, being mindful of how Ben was watching over my every move in the game, I made a point to avoid doing anything too obvious. But I sent out a hidden message to you guys. I never equipped the lens, nor the mask, nor visited a stone. It worked, and the video was uploaded. I prayed that someone would notice the pattern didn't apply to Ben. The tags followed suit too. I hope you guys paid attention to those as well. They were my little messages to you. Nothing big enough that would catch Ben's attention or make him suspect anything. With Ben manipulating and changing my files, I honestly hope that what you guys saw was close to what actually happened, but there is no way for me to know. This may be a long read. I don't have time to proofread or make all of my research pretty. You weren't doing that before, but here it all is. September 6th, 2010. 11 p.m. Can't believe what happened. Not sure if this is some kind of elaborate hoax, despite the fear I can't help but be exceptionally curious about this. Who or what is the statue? A lot of questions here. I'm starting this document as a diary, so I can keep track of everything. I'm typing up a summary of what happened so I can come back later.
September 7th, 2010, 2:10 a.m. Summary was posted here. You can go back and look at my first post for day 4.wmv for that. 4:23 a.m. I can't sleep. I've been trying so hard, but the harder I try, I just get more restless. I just feel like that statue's appearing whenever I close my eyes. 8:20 a.m. Didn't sleep at all, just gonna start my day. I don't think I have energy to go to class today. I'm going to drive back down to talk to that old man, taking my buddy Tyler with me just in case. 1:18 p.m. Back home now. No sign of the old man. Really weird that he appears to be moving the next day. But maybe the for sale sign was up there yesterday and I just didn't notice it. Tyler wants to know what's gotten me all worked up. I didn't tell him. Going to eat. Feel like death. 3:46 p.m. Could have sworn driving back from Subway that I saw the elegy statue buried in some shrubbery staring at me go by. Now I definitely need sleep. 5 p.m. Don't think a lot of people would believe me if I told them about what's happening. Think I'm going to try posting this on the internet. Think I'll just use the summary. These notes are pretty sporadic. 6 p.m. Connected my capture card to my computer to upload the footage. Thought my computer froze for a second. Made this strange popping sound when I hooked everything up. But now it seems to be working fine again. My computer can't die on me now. 7 p.m. Footage is finished uploading. The quality is a lot better than I thought it would be. Gee, guess this is a really special cartridge. I've never had it come through this clear before. 8:45 p.m. Thought I saw an icon pop up on my desktop that looked like the statue's face for a split second. Gave me quite a scare. Getting really unnerved and delirious. I'm going to crash after this. 9 p.m. Begin uploading my YouTube video on an alternate account. 9:03 p.m. I don't remember having uploaded a Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines video last year. This was probably the account that I shared with a friend of mine last summer. I hope he doesn't mind me using it to upload this. 9:55 p.m. Posting my summary of day 4 with a link to the YouTube video. Going to try to stay awake, but I'm so tired right now.
September 8, 2010. 10:48 a.m. I had a dream about the statue. I dreamed that it was following me in my dream, that I would be minding my own business when I'd feel my neck hair stand up on end. I would turn around that thing, that horrible, lifeless statue would be staring with those empty eyes right at me, merely inches away. In my dream, I remember calling it Ben, power of suggestion most likely, and never before had I had a dream that I could remember so vividly. 11:21 a.m. I really don't want to play this game again. I think I'm going to go back to see if that old man's there instead. 1:35 p.m. No old man, but I had an interesting conversation with his neighbor. I'll post the full thing with my summary of tonight's attempt at playing the game. Going to wait for a bit though and see if I can't dig up any information on this Ben guy. 2:45 p.m. I've been getting random, inexplicable headaches due to the lack of sleep and keep hearing that song in my head. Also, it's flu season, so I need to be careful not to get sick. My immune system is going to be shit right now because of that all-nighter. 3 p.m. Blank. 3:02 p.m. My computer just, on its own, opened up a text document and wrote the words "Hi" and www.cleverbot.com by itself. What the fuck? 3:46 p.m. I went to the website. It's one of those bot chatting programs. I think it's best if I just let the conversation speak for itself.
Hello?
Hello.
Who is this, and how are you able to control my computer?
Who am I?
Right, forgot, you're a bot.
Do you really think that?
Listen, I know whoever's fucking with my computer can see my screen right now.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'll wager that you're one of those IT kids who thinks he's tough shit. You know what you're doing right now is illegal, right?
Is it?
No shit. Are you familiar with the terms invasion of privacy? Get the fuck off my computer, kid.
I am your computer.
A cool story. Anyway, I'm calling DPS. You picked a bad time to fuck with me, kid.
Should I wait until you play the game then?
What?
That game.
Majora's Mask?
Yes.
How did you know about that?
Because
Because what?
I did it.
Did what?
I played with you.
What the fuck?
Were you scared?
Who the fuck is this?
Ben.
The statue? You're inside my computer now?
Yes.
How?
You connected me.
How the hell did I connect you?
Cables and cords.
How?
Tell me about yourself.
What?
Tell me about yourself.
What do you mean?
What is it that really scares you?
What the fuck?
Answer.
No.
Answer.
What the fuck? How the fuck did you just open that by yourself?
I am your computer now.
How much can you control?
All.
What do you want from me?
To entertain.
You're stuck inside there. You can't hurt me?
Ha.
Question mark.
Go play.
No, you can't hurt me.
Took you longer to type that.
So?
You're not sure.
If you're so powerful, why use a ridiculous website like this to chat with me?
Less messy. More structured. Fun.
Fun?
Yes. Tradition. I like it.
You think it's funny?
Amusing.
And of my notes?
You may write them down.
Why are you letting me?
It is amusing to see what you think of me.
Window closes.
3:50 p.m. What have I done? I've invited it into my computer. I continue to write these notes, write my summaries. I feel like I'm a prisoner in my once place of security. I don't know. I don't know if I'm hallucinating or not. I feel like I'm fucking insane right now. I can feel it watching over me even as I type this. Ben is controlling everything in the game, toying with me, leading me like a sheep, but for what? What's the purpose? I know Ben drowned, but why these hauntings? What the fuck am I even doing? I can probably see this right now. 7:18 p.m. Ben called me to Cleverbot again. He tells me that he's sorry and wants to be free, and that I can free him, that just like how he got on my computer from the capture card, he can spread, but he needs my help. He says I am special because I can help him. That is the first nice thing he has said. He promises to leave me alone if I do it. He swears he will. I don't know what to think right now. How can I even trust this thing? 7:20 p.m. I'm terrified of it, but now it's saying that it was just having fun. It's twisted and fucked up version of fun. He's saying that the game is over. I do want it to be over. He says that he just wants to be free, that he's trapped in the cartridge on my computer and he wants to be freed. I don't want to have to deal with this shit. I don't know how long I can deal with the watching. It's watching my every move, every keystroke. I have nothing private anymore. It knows everything that's been on my computer. It tells me that if it wanted to, it could do horrible things to me, but it hasn't, so I should trust it. 8:01 p.m. Something tells me that I'm being played again, just like in the game. 9:29 p.m. Ben called me to Cleverbot again. I ignored it and went to go take a shower. When I came to my laptop, I was welcomed with an image elegy statue staring at me with those dead eyes. I don't want to talk to him. 9:44 p.m. Fuck you, Ben. I'm not talking to you. 9:56 p.m. Fuck you, Ben. I'm not talking. 10:06 p.m. Fuck you, Ben. I'm not talking to you. 10:12 p.m. Fuck you, Ben. I'm not talking to you.
That one felt a little bit targeted at me, I'm just going to say.
10:45 p.m. It's been more than half an hour and the messages have stopped. Ben has stopped. I'm beginning to think that Ben isn't confined to just my computer or cartridge. I'm beginning to feel something. It's hard to explain it. I've never been spiritual, but there's something different about the air in my dorm room now. 11:42 p.m. I'm beginning to see the elegy statue randomly as I search the internet in places I shouldn't. Places where he shouldn't be. I'd be scrolling down and suddenly I'd be staring at a picture of the elegy statue. Always the elegy statue. I don't know how much more of this I can take.
September 9, 2010, 12:35 a.m. My worst fears confirmed. Ben has tampered with my summary of ben.wmv. I looked at the summary that I posted on various forums for the ben.wmv file, and parts have been omitted. There's no mention of Ben existing outside the game. There's no mention of the Moon Children. How could he have been that quick to delete the post without me noticing? I wonder if maybe it appeared to me that I was posting everything, but in reality, Ben was posted in his own censored version. I'm going to ask Ben why he did it. 12:50 a.m. He isn't responding to me on Cleverbot. It's just giving me the generic responses it usually does. I'm just talking to a bot this time. 1:24 a.m. I think Ben is mad at me. 10:43 a.m. The Moon Children appeared in my dreams last night. They lifted up their masks to reveal their hideous, disfigured faces, maggots crawling out of their orifices, sunken black holes where their eyes should be, a yellow smile that slowly grew bigger and bigger as they came closer to me. They told me that they wanted to play. I tried to run from them, but the 4 children pinned me down to the ground with surprising strength. Over them stood the happy mask salesman, announcing that he had a new mask that he wanted me to try. In his spastic, sudden movements matching his in-game appearance, he took out a mask modeled off of someone's face that I couldn't recognize, a younger-looking face, and handed it to the Moon Children. Giggling, they latched it to my face, their horrible, broken bodies bouncing up and down. 2 of them held me down, while the other 2 began to sew the mask onto my face. My shrieks and screams caused the happy mask salesman's face to turn into the most horrific smile I've ever seen. He sporadically moved around, examining this procedure like a curious doctor in that impossible movement. I flailed around, but it was to no use. My eyes rolled in the back of my head because of the pain. It felt so real, but I couldn't wake up. I couldn't wake up no matter how hard I tried. I couldn't wake up. After the mask was melded onto my flesh, they began sewing my legs together, then my arms. The horrific feeling of a needle puncturing your legs and pulling them in, rupturing your Achilles tendon, and tying them together resonated throughout my entire body. I tried to scream, but the mask was pressed so tightly against my face that it was my new face. I had a new face and no mouth. I didn't make a sound. I tried telling myself in my head that I was dreaming. I tried telling myself again and again, and suddenly the moon children stopped and looked at me. They just stared. And the happy masked salesman slowly bent down and stared at me, inches away from my face, and grinned when he simply said, "You've met with a terrible fate, haven't you?" Before the moon children resumed with increased vigor. I couldn't wake up. It wouldn't let me wake up until they had crafted me into another elegy statue. I woke up sweating, crying, and shaking uncontrollably. I immediately ran to my computer and went for Ben.
I'm literally crying and shaking right now.
Sweating too.
All right, you could be Ben this time, buddy.
I'll be clever boot.
September 9th, 2010, Conversation 1. Answer me, Ben.
Welcome back.
What is the point of doing this? Why?
Amusing to see.
How?
Fun to play, fun to toy with you, make you feel safe. I wonder how you would have reacted.
To what?
If I hadn't revealed myself and stayed hidden, only doing little things to play with you. Close out your windows, turn off your computer, move your mouse by itself. Little things. Make you wonder if I am there, but you never know. Give you little hints that I am. I wanted to do something different with you.
You did this before?
Yes, and I will do it again.
To who? Ben? Did you know Ben?
Won't tell you that information.
How did Ben die?
You know.
No, but how did he drown?
Won't tell that to you.
Why?
It is reserved for another.
Who?
Another who asks.
When?
Later.
The window is closed. I'm beginning to think that this thing maybe isn't Ben after all. In its sadistic nature, I wouldn't be surprised if it took the boy's name after it killed him. 12:04 p.m. My room is beginning to feel different again. There's something out there. I feel really threatened, like there is something that is trying to reach out to me and strangle me, but it can't quite get there. 12:46 p.m. I think Ben doesn't want to play with me anymore. I'll play again. I'll play the game again. Ben, can you see this? I'll play the game again. Please, just stop this, please. 1:41 p.m. I'm going insane trying to decide what is real and what isn't. Is Ben just playing a trick on me, or is this for real? Is Ben generating these replies, or are people actually posting them? Did I just see that screen flicker, or was it my imagination? Imagine depending on the internet and trusting your eyes for your entire life and then being blinded. You can't rely on it anymore. You second-guess everything. For the brief moments I am looking at my responses to the videos, people were pointing out things that looked fake or photoshopped or whatever, and there is literally no way for me to know if Ben changed something on purpose to try and shut me up. Or if maybe these replies were just constructed by Ben to try and discourage me from even reaching out. See, I get fucking caught in an infinite mindfuck loop like this, and this is what has been wearing on my sanity and pushing me to the edge. As I'm writing this, there's no way of even telling if anyone cares as much as I think they do. Just another fucking trick. Does this whole document even exist? Am I writing nothing?
9/9/10. September 9th, 2010. Conversation 2. What is it? What's the point of playing? I die whenever I do anything.
You die because you can't figure out the secret.
What?
Thematic.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Their beauty in your suffering.
The window is closed. 4:09 p.m. Ben is making me play the game again. It tells me that it has something very important to show me. 6:23 p.m. Summary of drowned.wmv. 9:09 p.m. Summary of children.wmv playthrough. September 10th, 2010, 11:52 a.m. The drowned.wmv playthrough was up when I woke up today. I remember typing it up, but I don't ever remember posting it. He censored it again. There's no mentioning of the old man. I have no voice anymore. I'm only posting what he wants me to. I am the mask he uses to disguise himself as he lies. 11:55 a.m. There's an entire video summary of a video that I don't remember doing. Reading through the summary, this sounds morbid, resembling my dream from 2 nights ago, except on a far more sadistic scale. These moon children, there's something more to them, almost as if they are another entity from Ben. Something happened last night that I can't remember. I'm posting the 4th summary to the forums now. Shadow of my chair moved. 12 p.m. Ben won't let me visit YouTube. I can browse the rest of the sites, but he keeps on exiting the window when I go to YouTube. Why? 2:02 p.m. I'm feeling the air start to constrict. I don't think I'm alone here. Whatever aura has been here is getting more violent. 2:44 p.m. I'm trying to contact Ben on Cleverbot. He's not responding. I just get the AI. 3:51 p.m. My ears aren't fooling me. I'm hearing the reverse song of healing. I keep hearing it. 4:23 p.m. Now I'm positive of it. Earlier I thought it was a weird coincidence, but now I just went to open my window and 3 floors down at the ground level I saw the old man. I'm completely positive I did. The same guy. He was just staring up at my window, standing in the middle of campus. If any students took notice of him, they didn't seem to acknowledge it.
That's where my notes end. I fled my room, taking the cartridge with me. I don't want to go into full details of what happened. I'll lose my train of thought as I hammer out these last details. It's been roughly 2 days since then. This is my last summary and service to you of the final video you guys saw, matt.wmv. The last video entry I made, matt.wmv, began as normal. I was spawned in Clocktown as usual, and nothing seemed to be out of place. Determined to set things right and play the oath to order on top of the clock tower on the 4th day, I prepared myself. I sped up time and got to the final day, making my way to the observatory. As I got up to the telescope room and approached the astronomer, he would not let me look into his telescope. He told me that it would be cheating and that I should follow the rules. Despite my repeated efforts, the game would not let me do the 4th day glitch, no matter how hard or what I tried. I tried working around the game and doing the glitch, but it was adamant this time. Regardless of if I simply had the illusion of free will in prior games, this time the game became more aggressive than anything I've ever seen. It eventually told me to go to Canna Canyon, where the game would end and it would stop haunting me. Anxious and desperate to end this nightmare, I played the Song of Soaring and ended up there. I was told to check my inventory, that I would find the answers there to end the game. I arrived at Canna Canyon and saved my progress at the owl statue. As I searched through my inventory, I finally noticed that I was missing a recurring song, the Elegy of Emptiness. Obviously, once I traveled there and learned the song, I suppose that was the last thing it needed before Ben decided it had had enough fun playing with me. Ben is a manipulator. He tries to fool his victims into security and makes you drop your guard like a Venus flytrap. He ensnares them. I am nothing but a puppet to him. He enjoys seeing what kind of human emotions he can tap into by doing different things. There are still some things about this whole experience that still don't make sense. But then again, I never was good at figuring out these things, and I'm not exactly in the right state of mind to. I'm giving you all the pieces of the puzzle for you to analyze and piece together the missing links. I am typing these closing thoughts on the library computer on campus, and I've emailed myself the notes I have stored on my infected computer from the last 4 days. I'm then going to combine those copy-pasted notes with the closing/openings that I've typed here on the safe public computer into one text document. I'm not taking any chances spreading Ben. I would not wish this horrible torment on anyone, and I've made sure to have my bases covered here. I didn't run into any problems with Ben when I was back on my computer trying to email myself the notes. Went right under his fucking nose. He has no idea what he just let me do. Had no problems opening the text document from my infected computer in my email either. I can't describe to you how it feels to finally be able to get the word out in this post. The nightmare ends here.
That said, Do not download any of my videos or anything about my videos through a YouTube video, audio ripper, a screen grab, whatever. I don't know how he can spread, but I know that just watching them on YouTube, reading my text won't be able to allow him to spread. Otherwise, he wouldn't have needed my help in the first place. But I strongly recommend you do not take anything you see streaming online onto your own personal computer. This will be my last posting I'm putting up on this forum here for the world. If you see any further posts from me after today's current date, September 12th, and after the current time, 12:08 a.m., discredit them. It already has proven to me that Ben can access my account and password and manipulate my computer. And like I said, I have no idea to what extent it can do this. But know that it will do anything to break free. He is desperate to ensure your safety. Just forget about me, please. And obviously, this goes without saying, but from here on out, do not download any images I may have put up, any files, anything. The 5th day will be my last day. I'm going to burn the cartridge and then come back to destroy my laptop. Again, even though I don't even know you, this is sort of bittersweet for me. This semester, I really didn't have any friends, or rather, I stopped paying attention to them. But I suppose that's partially to blame because I am a genius who picked to live in a single. I suppose someone to get a hold of me and save me before I get too immersed in... What the hell is this sentence? I'm sorry. What? This is such a bad sentence. But I suppose that's partially to blame because I am a genius who picked to live in a single. I suppose I am someone to get a hold of me and save me before I got too immersed into this game would have literally saved my life. However, it proved too much for me. I'm just glad it happened to me and I could get the warning out so that Ben dies here. Lastly, thank you for taking this time to open this and open yourselves up to me by hearing my story, despite maybe not believing me. You didn't have to do that, really. You shouldn't have. Your support this entire time has kept me going, and now I am finally free of this. Thanks again, Jeducible.
That took a little longer than expected.
It did.
So what do you think now that we're through this? What do you think?
As someone who more or less lived in Majora's Mask, which I did as a child and as an adult, I mean, like, I really did live that game. Like, I've played it more than I've played anything else. I've put well over 450 hours into that game. It was spookier back in, like, 2010. Because the game is an unsettling game in a lot of cases. But as somebody who is, reads things more slowly than he used to, and reads things very, very carefully, grammatically, this thing was a nightmare.
I mean, yeah, it's not written well. I think the biggest thing for me is, like, nothing about this is scary to me. It's like, what if a creepy video game? And what if you reading about the creepy video game made your computer the creepy video? It's just very lazy to me. I agree with you, though. In 2010, when we were, like, in high school, or maybe even earlier, like early high school, yeah, something like this was scary.
And as a game that I'd played that had already had some really unnerving themes, because I basically lived in it, imagining these sorts of things wasn't too far off. Some of the videos suspend my belief because I've seen the videos that go with this, and some of them are, like, clearly him playing Majora's Mask on, like, GameCube or Wii or something. So it kind of, I'm sitting there like, okay, you can't... I respect the fact that you have edited these happenings in the game, but you're not selling me whenever I don't see the yellow C buttons or, other things. So I don't know. If it was going to happen to any game cartridge, I feel like it makes sense for it to be that, but, like... I don't know. It was so clunky to read this time.
Well, and that's the thing. This, nothing about the story requires it happen on Majora's Mask. It could have happened on any video game. And I think they picked this one because it's somewhat creepy, and it was kind of like a supplement to what they were doing. I don't know, man. It comes across as lazy to me. I hate to end the episode just like shitting on this on this thing that was obviously written by a kid, but like, I don't know. I'm happy to shit on it because I don't like it.
No, I liked it at the time. Now I do not. I know that it's the big thing, but I'm sure that a lot of people, I would wager to say a lot of our listeners listening to this would probably go back and say, okay, yeah, these are the slightly eerie moments, these are the creepy moments, but I doubt anyone is like sitting there applauding the story going, yeah, this is great. Because like, I don't think I remembered it being better. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But let me tell you something, Rick. Eaton Park is better than I remembered it to be. So to anyone in southwestern Pennsylvania, I'm making a joke, basically, because this was worse than I remembered it to be. Eaton Park, though, if you've got one near you, go to it. It's ready for you.
Well, I guess since Ben mentioned Eaton Park, I guess that means it's time to end the episode.
No, wait. No, I do actually have one story for you, though. Back in the day, I booted up conversations with Cleverbot back after reading this. And there were a number of people who were in charge of Cleverbot that whenever you say what happened to Ben, they would say in all caps, Ben drowned. So people were perpetuating this at the time.
Is Cleverbot still active?
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there it is, our inaugural spooky, scary story readings on Pixel Project Radio.
Rick, yours wins for me.
I liked it. I that was fun.
The Pale Man.
That does it for this week's episode.
Yes, it does. We appreciate you all hanging around listening to some spooky stories, or maybe some stories that you thought were spookier and are less spooky, or maybe some stories that you thought weren't very spooky, but now you are verily spooked.
Spooktacular. If you want to suggest us a spooky story or other scary medias, you can get in contact with us on Twitter and Instagram. You could find us by searching Pixel Project Radio. You can find us on Discord. That link will be in the description, as always.
We have a Gmail.
We do have a Gmail. You can get in contact with us at pixelprojectradio@gmail.com. And as always, if you like what we do, you could reach out to us on Patreon. That's patreon.com/pixelprojectradio. I think that's all the plugs for this episode. It's gone a little long, so why don't we go ahead and call it?
I think we shall. Rick, thanks for doing this with me.
Yeah, it was a blast. Can't wait for next year.
That's right, baby.
As always, my name is Rick the Phantom Firestone.
And my name is Ben the Gabagool Bugale. See you next time.
Oh.